Hey guys, what's going on? So in this video, I'm going to install all the lighting on my 2022 F250 any level. I needed some lights that are going to make that color shine, and CZ Mods is the only way to do it. So if you're going to order CZ Mods, I'm going to have them linked below. Use It's Just Holding at checkout for some money off your order. I already have, I think it's like 28 or 30 rock lights that are going in this thing. I do not need that many, but it's mainly just to say that I have them. Also to shine on top of the axles. Most people don't need that. I want that because obviously my axles are powder coated. I'll be doing these 7-row wheel lights, and right now in my opinion they're the best ones that they offer. They do have the 14 rows, so it'll be 2 of my strips. I just didn't want a super wide band around the brake rotors or anything like that, so I genuinely prefer the 1 strip. But if you like the 2 strip, the 14 rows, they have them, and they're absolutely insanely bright. In my opinion, no matter what you order, as long as you get from CZ Mods, it's going to be bright. So I got to go ahead and hook the dually from the trailer. I got to take it to get an estimate. I got to take the trailer to get registered, and then I got to go get the wheel lights, and then we're doing nothing but working on this truck. All right, guys, I'm back. I got everything I needed. I got the wheel lights, found an old trash box, but I have them in pieces because I'm going to put them together behind my axle. If you order CZ Mods wheel lights, they do not come like this. They come pre-assembled, ready to go on your truck. But since I don't want to mess with the powder, and I don't want to take all the brakes apart or anything like that, I don't want to risk anything at all, I'm just going to build them behind the brakes. It is super easy to do like that. But one thing I could never find is how to get these rear end fenders out. There are these big old fat plugs. Here you have 1, 2, and 3. And if you don't know how you're doing, they are actually super hard to get out, and they're really hard to get out without busting them. I actually broke one, but I'm trying not to break them because I don't think I'll be able to get any in time for Sema. So I'll show you the best way. You get one of these big old flat pry things right here. Use a hammer to really get it on there, and then kind of just pry it out. You might, yeah, and it comes out like that. Sometimes you might have to hammer it in there twice, but I didn't mess that one up, so that one's still good to go onto the truck. Again, 3 of those per side. Then you got 3 7mm screws. Take those out, and this thing will be free. It kind of just takes a little bit of persuasion. So what I found is the easiest to get these things actually out of here is start on the back end, and this is for both sides, and then just work your way up. It's not easy. Just like have your finger in here. Use your other hand to kind of just pull this side down, and you'll slowly kind of just be able to work it out of there. These things are stiff and hard to get out. That's the worst part about doing this. They do give you these little pull tabs in there, so look back up behind the lip, grab those, put your finger behind them, and try to just pull it out. It's not too bad, but like I said, those plugs are really the hardest part. And then I'll go ahead and show you guys how I measure these out. Throw these over here for right now. The fronts were already out, but the fronts are super easy. There's a bunch of 5.5mm screws, I think maybe a couple 8s, and I know there's some flatheads, but like I said, they're super easy. This truck actually had push tabs, but if you have a 17 to, I think I know like 2020, there is a bunch more screws that would be just right along here. But anyways, let's go ahead and start getting to the install. I've got a bunch more wiring tomorrow, so I can actually only do the first half of the rock lights today. Then I will do the wheel lights, and then I will do the other half of the rock lights. So it's gonna be a little confusing. I forgot to order the wire. Like I said, it'll be here tomorrow, which is the last day I have to work on this. So we're pulling it a little close, but I think it's still gonna be pretty doable as long as I get all of the wheel lights on tonight. To get started, as you can see, I've got all of my rock lights kind of located where I want them. Gonna be doing 28. I have the CZ Mods 36-row wheel lights. I have the Southern Lumens rock light mounts with Cole and Zach, or the CZ Mods guys are looking at coming out with. And then I bought these magnets on Amazon. They have like a 100-pound hold weight, and they go on their freaking trunk. You gotta watch your fingers because you will clamp them, but yeah, they're on there really, really good. I've got 3 on each side of the frame. I've got 2 on each side of the inner frame. I've got 3 in each fenders, 3 underneath the front bumper, 3 underneath the rear, and then I've got 1 above each axle. So how many ever that comes out to be is how many rock lights I've got. It's gonna be, a lot of them honestly might be kind of useless, but most of you guys trucks aren't this big. Most of you guys are gonna have shadows like the 4-link bars, all this stuff like this, because there's so much stuff in the way because there's a lot to this lift. That's why they're so strong. So I've got a lot of shadows that I need to cover. So I'm gonna be doing a couple more rock lights, but honestly, you only need 1 in the fender well. If your truck's this tall, I would definitely do 2, but I'm doing 3, literally just to say I have 3. It's kind of just more of a bragging right, more or less, but yeah, we're doing that on this truck. First course of action, you need your inner fenders, all of them out, obviously. I get a Sharpie to mark the center, and then you need a tape measure to measure out. Since I'm doing 3, I will go ahead and put the center of the first one up on obviously the top center, and then I will put the other 2 probably 8 inches out. The center's 8 inches out from them, so they're not gonna be super wide apart because I want them mostly on top, because then they'll just shine all the suspension. If you have them too far down, they're just honestly gonna shine more into the tire, and they're kind of useless. So that's why I do 3, but I keep them mostly up towards the top. F250 is very lucky. Right here is dead center, so that's where I'll go ahead and just draw a line right here, and then generally I'll just center them in here. But if you are doing another vehicle, and I can't remember for like Chevy and stuff like that, just mark your center. If you're only going to do 2, have your center go 8 inches out or 10 inches out, however far you want to go out, and put your center there, and just put the center of the rock lights. If you're doing 4 center, measure over 8, you know how many rock lights you're doing, just ratio it out perfectly and it'll be fine. I'm going to go ahead and do 1 front, 1 rear so you guys can see how they look, and then I'll show you guys how I do the front and the rears after that. All right, so I got the front drivers done, and I don't know which one this is, but it doesn't really matter either way. So this one's done. As you see, I got a space part. I actually put them a little bit further than I wanted to, because I was going to put them really close together, but honestly I thought that was kind of useless. So it's a little bit further apart than I was going to, but it should still be really freaking bright. And you got this. I actually didn't even measure with the measuring tape. I just did the old right here. Close enough. Close enough. Close enough. Good enough, you know what I mean? See, I drilled a hole for the wires, so these wires obviously aren't up here. They go behind it, but when this is in, there will be no wires seen, because when you're looking at like this way inside the truck, obviously the wire is on the other side. So don't drill the wire in on this side, drill it in on the back side of the rock light so you don't see it. Do the same thing over here through the plastic. And I will say the only thing, can't speak for a lot of other trucks, but I do know all the F-Series trucks, these plastic rear fenders hug the inside of that. So what I usually like to do is I will get a grinder and I will cut all of these studs off. You don't have to do that, but I do know it makes it, 1, a little bit harder to put in, and 2, it actually pushes against it. So I think it kind of like wants to, the plastic just is kind of like misshaped a little bit. It's not that bad. I didn't do this on my white truck, but I did it on my silver truck, my silver any level, and it looks 10 times better. So I'm going to do it on this one as well. Again, just kind of take a grinder and a cut off disc and just cut these studs off. I'm going to go and do that right now. All right, so I'm trying to capture this as best as I can. That's that right there. So first, what I'm going to go ahead and do is get the rock lights pretty bundled out. I just grab it to the pliers, pull the zip tie off. And then what I do is you don't need all this cord the way that I do things. Now, if you're doing the plug and play kit, 1, you really don't need to watch this video. And you need to drill a hole big enough for the plug. But since I don't want that big of a hole, because I want the wire to be really hidden and I want the hole to be really hidden, as I don't want to drill a hole that big. You'd have to do like a 1/2 inch hole, versus this one I can do a 1/4 inch, which is the same size as the bolts. Or actually I could do smaller if I really wanted to. There's just no need for it because you won't see it anyways. So you just go ahead and figure out exactly where you want it. I kind of remember on the other truck, place exactly where you need it. Find out, just drill your holes through here. I got my 2 bolt holes. Now I'll figure out where I want the drill hole for the wire at, and then I will go ahead and tilt the rock light up, tilt it down to make sure, tilt it back up again. Remove the rock light because you don't want to catch the wire. Then just drill your hole. And then now with the same rock light, if you want to go ahead and bolt that one on, you can, but I'm going to tell you right now, to save yourself some time, just use the same rock light and do the other 2 as well. Kind of just look at where your bolt holes are and then just repeat the process. All right, so now you've got all of your holes drilled. That's where I'll go ahead and do first is go ahead and put the wire through the bottom hole. The reason I also like so the wire comes out of the bottom, you got your branding up here, so when you have it in there and somebody looks up underneath into it, they can read the branding very clearly. It's not going to be upside down. That's another reason I like to do that. Now I'll go ahead and get all my hardware. All of the CZ Mods rock lights come with hardware, whether you order them individually or you order them as a plug and play kit. No matter what, they come with 2 bolts, 2 lock nuts, and 2 washers for every single rock light. So I actually don't use their hardware underneath the truck at all, just because, like I said, I like to use those magnet ones. Or if you don't want to use those magnets, because those I think it was about $200 all in on the magnet stuff. If you don't feel like using magnets, then what you can do is just zip tie them. Just zip tie them to good spots. Like the body mounts are good spots. Those are always spots that I use. You can zip tie them to the wiring harness, just different stuff like that. And I'm gonna go ahead and get all my bolts shoved through for the rock lights. Grab all the washers, throw the washers on first. Grab your nuts, go ahead and put your nuts on there. You can use a screwdriver if you want. I use a drill just because it's faster, because there is a lot of thread, so that'll take really long with a screwdriver. So like I said, I have a drill with a Phillips on it, and then I use a wrench, the 10mm on top. I think the bolts are like a Phillips #2. Anyways, what I go and do now is go ahead and zip tie all these wires right up top. I think it is the easiest. You got the most amount of movement there. After I get one done, I'll go ahead and put them on the tires. I think it's the easiest to solder them all this way. Plus, you just have them ready to go in when you're done with them. So I'm gonna go and do the front one, do it the exact same way. Like I said, just measure your center then go however far you need to go this way. With on the Fords, I do this right here is pretty close to center. I'll do the center with that. I'll do this and this one right here. They're measured equal distance apart. All right, so after I get all that done, as you can see, this is how they were. I go and strip the ends off, get the copper exposed and get that all twisted up. Then I'll go to the other side to show you how I actually get it done. And it turns into something like this. So it turns more or less into a harness. I go and wrap black electrical tape all the way down this thing. I twist all three of them together, and then I put black electrical tape around the grounds. And then if you have red electrical tape, do it around the power, just because it's easier to see underneath the truck. So at this point, I can go ahead and throw all the inner fenders in, and then the wires will get tucked right over here underneath the frame. And then all the wiring will be ready to go underneath the truck, basically. So you can go ahead and get these up in your truck. A lot of people like to put plugs in these, and normally I do as well. I do not have enough time to get plugs in these. So if you want to install a plug, that's where you'll just put these into a plug, get your other side too, put it into a plug and plug it in underneath the truck. Some people like to do it up here, but in my opinion, like I said, these absolutely hug these inner fenders up here. So there's really not even enough space for a plug. Like as you can see, there's literally cutouts right here for these. Like that's how close it actually gets. So typically what I like to do, because this cutout is oversized, run this wire probably down this side, since it's going to go through that hole there. Run it down this side, go ahead and put it in, and then underneath the truck I will shove it in there, and then I'll show you what it looks like then. Got all the rear inner fenders back in. As you can see right there is my positive and negative for those lights. Right there's for those ones. So what I do technically, so I'm just gonna do a little run through, obviously you'll see it later. I'll run my positive negative. I actually go behind this bracket, then I'll run it with this right here, cut it off, then I'll solder it, and then just move on to the next one. Just move on with this whole harness right here. Same thing over here. There's not really a harness, but it does look like there's a spot right here for one. It must be for the exhaust or something, but obviously it's no longer there. But I'll go ahead and run it up here, same thing. I'll run it back behind there. So I'll go ahead and solder this, maybe even outside on the other side, and then I'll shove it back in, go back up, go across there, and just, there should be an exhaust harness somewhere up there. I'll run it back up the front. You guys will see obviously later as I go. I'm just trying to break it down for you guys right now. Two of the rock lights I have here is kind of show the mount. Well, I'm actually probably gonna bend these up a little bit because this is just thin steel that is powder coated, but the powder will last after you stretch it. Same thing, I got this one over here. And then I got this one right here that is gonna bend up and shine that way. We can go see all this that side later. So I'm gonna go and start on this stuff by the battery up there. Okay, so I honestly can't lie. I got a little bit ahead of myself. So I got it hooked up to the switch power, but that's gonna be different no matter how you do it. Not very many people that watch this video are probably gonna have switch pros, even though I strongly recommend you get them. This is the switch pro right here. Obviously it controls the E level and whatnot. But on switch number 5, which is the top left button, I've got my rock lights. And I went ahead and actually hooked up this whole side here. And then I literally just taped to the harness. Here's actually, this is the rock light wires. I gotta get all these shoved back up in there. Now it's time to come down here and start doing the rock lights underneath the truck. Like I said, I want to just get that one hooked up, make sure I know how everything works. You know, it's kind of a flex. So you know, when you want to test all your rock lights, get them up literally, that's all I gotta do. Go in here, put on ice spice, because that's what I'm calling this thing right now. And literally, rock lights right here. Pretty freaking fancy. Right there alone is why I think you should get a Switch Pro, so I can control the whole lift with my phone. I can control all the rock lights with my phone when I do wheel lights, starlight, all that stuff. I'll be able to do it all on my phone. So here's the first rock light. I'm gonna try to capture this one. Honestly, it'll probably be easier to do underneath, but I'll showcase a few on exactly how I do it. It's super freaking easy, so don't even stress about that. Before I do much of anything, and I always make sure I have a little bit of slack, so if I need to move these rock lights, I can do that. Like I said, whether you're zip tying them, literally no matter what you're doing, just always make sure you've got a little slack. And what I always like to do is go up past the rock light. That's when I'll bring the rock light wire up with it, leave some slack. Once I have that, as you can see I hope you guys can see that right there. I've got these two wires together. There's slack, it's brought forward. So that is where I'll go and cut my wires. So instead of having to do all the work up in the truck, the reason I like to leave slack and stuff is because now I can bring these wires down here, do all the work, and then I can zip tie it up later. And I'll show you guys what I'm doing. All right, so right here are the tools you'll need. These are my favorite splitters. I actually got these from the TikTok shop, and I've sold quite a few of them. You will need a knife, a razor blade is preferably. These little things right here, these are the solder stick connectors. I used to solder everything, and I was diehard solder guy. Electrical tape, of course. But honestly, I tested these solder stick connectors out on the silver truck. It went by 10 times faster, and so far so good. They have had no problems. I have 24 high wattage rock lights. Now this is gonna be the real test for them, but they've stuck together really good, and a lot of people really, really like them. I'm trying to showcase what I'm doing here. I'm gonna lean you guys down a little bit more. I'm needing to cut it at.
Obviously go and splice this one like normal, do about 3 or so inches, between 2 and 3 inches somewhere. Don't go too crazy, you don't want to split the red small wires in there. Go and pull that off, splice back about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. Doesn't have to be perfect, trust me. I like to twist the wires up so when you put them inside of that solder stick connector, they're not going to get all pushed up, jumbled up against each other. Now this stuff is kind of hard to deal with. This is black 12 gauge enclosed wiring. I'll have the link in the bio for it. I just buy it on Amazon. It's $40 for 50 foot. You actually need about 75 feet. So I ordered 200 foot just to make it safe, play it safe. Like I said, I am a little short on some, but I should just need one more 50 foot and it'll be here tomorrow. Hard to split apart. If you just want to cut this, you can, but I like to split it faster, but it's honestly probably not. And then from here, see over here, I'll go ahead and cut off. I need to get my actual side cutters. It would make this 10 times easier. Okay. Here, it's like that 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. Like I said, does not have to be exact. And then that's where you'll go ahead and, so to go to the next rock light, obviously you need to have your other wire, which is right here. Did it just with that piece, split it right on the middle, take it apart, cut 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch off, then I'll solder it together. I'll show you guys me doing that here in just a sec. Show you guys my 3 wires. This right here is the wire that goes up to the fender well, then up to the battery. This is the wire that goes to the rock light. This right here is the wire that is going to go to the rest of the rock lights. Every once in a while, you'll have to actually add multiple rock lights in one thing. It makes it 10 times easier to do it that way. And I'm actually gonna do, looks like 4 rock lights splicing in the next, and I'll show you. It's a little bit complicated, but it's not hard at all, trust me. This stuff's super easy, because if it was hard, I wouldn't be doing it. The reason I like to do this all myself is because 1, it's extremely expensive to pay somebody else to do it, and 2, I just don't really trust anybody because really nobody, like I said, usually people just twist freaking wires together. All right, so let's get started. Right here, I got the little red wire, rock light wire. I got it twisted around the power wire. I'll go and shove my solder stick connector on there, get it where the end is past, both ends of the rock light wire and the power wire are past, and I'll shove the other power wire in the other side, shove it in there good. And then either a lighter and a heat gun. I recommend you use a heat gun because a lighter can be too hot for these solder stick connectors. It doesn't take a whole lot of heat for the solder to actually melt. You'll see the heat shrink part of it actually start to shrink up first. And you'll see the solder start to soften up in there. Kind of try to hit it from different angles. I'll hit it from the back side here in a sec. Sometimes these can bust open, which has been my least favorite thing about them because it's happened to me before. It hasn't happened to me yet, but like I said, the day is still young. Gotta let that cool down for a second before you put all the weight of the wire on it. As you can see, that right there is a really good connection. Again, I have tested these out for a while. I've got a lot of high wattage rock lights on the silver any level, and they work just fine. The moment you can touch it is the moment you can let it go. You can see it, you got a good connection there. Go ahead and pull them apart, make sure it's good. We move on to the next one. Boom, one side, got the negative. Make sure all the wires are good. Make sure they're crossing, make sure the wires are going past the piece of solder. And now you're good to heat shrink. So that cools down just like that. You got 2 really good connections that are never gonna let water inside of them. And then what I typically like to do, a lot of people like to use the heat shrink. I love using heat shrink, but the only problem with it is sometimes it can be too big for all this stuff, and so really I don't think it closes up any better. So I usually just use, for stuff like this, electrical tape. I think it's plenty good enough. I start about an inch and a half back on the both block pieces, then I'll go down, run it over the wires. You can use heat shrink if you want. Like I said, I don't think it's gonna help out a whole bunch more. It might be a little bit better, I don't know, but again, I have never had a problem doing it like this. This is how I've done it on my last 3 trucks. Then I'll go back over just this side and you're good to go. Just like that, you got a waterproof connection. So obviously the heat shrink inside the wires is keeping water out of those, and then you got your electrical tape right here. So that's when you'll go ahead and take this, you will go ahead and put it up here, follow your harness like you were going to, and you'll just zip tie it up. It literally is that easy. So, and just like that, here, let me go ahead and pull it up so you guys can see the rock light. Just like that. Go ahead and just to test that rock light, you can see. Works pretty good. And again, I love these magnetic mounts. If you can get them, go to Southern Aluminum. I'll try to remember to link them below. I can always edit it later if I forget. But you can actually move these. You can bend the brackets in any which way you need to if you need to bend it out. That's why I like to leave a little bit of slack, because if I need to move it this way or that way or literally anywhere,
I can do that. So remember, leave slack if you use these, or even if you zip tie, leave a little bit of slack just in case you need to move it again. Okay, so right now I'm going to be doing 5 rock lights at one time. So I got that one wired up, but I'm gonna do this one right here, that one right there, 3, 4, and then 5 right there. That one, it almost looks pointless, but I promise you it's gonna get rid of all this whole gas tank shadow right here and help with light up some of that 4-link and also get rid of some of that 4-link shadow as well. What I'm gonna do is right around this area right here is gonna be my solder point. So I'm gonna take these, probably be about right here, because these 3 are gonna go in this way, and then in the other side of the connector, I'm gonna have these 2 going in along with power wires themselves. I know this is confusing, but it does make sense. It's just kind of gonna be coming down. You have to kind of get used to it. If you only want to do one connection at a time, just do one at a time. It's fine. I don't have the time. I gotta get all these connections done, so this will still look super clean and be perfect. All right, I'm gonna try to show this as best as possible. This is, again, gonna be kind of hard. So I'm gonna start from one end. I'm gonna go ahead and zip tie up with all wires. I'll just grab them as I go. Don't like stretch wires back, then run them back this way. Just run everything. Make it super easy and smooth for you. Remember to leave yourself some slack as well. Eventually, I do want to loom this, but for right now, like I said, I do not have the time to be worrying about looming stuff. All right, so I got these 2 rock light wires right here, or these 3. So right here is where I'll cut all those. That'll all go into one side. I know it kind of looks like it is going to be kind of hard and kind of thick, but I think we'll get it all right. Cut the length, about 2-3 inches of every single one. About a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch for the soldering. I normally would have done this whole side probably in just one connection, but I wanted to show you guys how to do just one, because a lot of you guys aren't going to want to do 5, so I'm giving you guys 2 separate little examples here. There's 5 rock lights at one time. It's not a super easy wiring job, but like I said, these connectors should be pretty good. Again, this is going to kind of test them out, but I'm super confident they do have a good amount of solder in them. Twist all the wires. All right, so now we'll go ahead and grab these 2 rock light wires right here. Again, I will go ahead and zip tie them up for the most part. Eventually, I will end up cutting all these zip ties and putting different ones on, but for right now, just to get the lengths of the wires set and whatnot, I am going to go ahead and zip tie them up. All right, and that is now where I will need to find out where all these wires go. Just check my length. Sorry if you have a little bit extra. Usually add about where I think, and then I add a 1/2 inch because you can never be too safe. The only downside to doing this rock lights from both sides is you have to do more of the soldering up in the truck. Like I said, that's why I like to leave a little bit more slack on these ones. There's always a place to put a little bit of slack, not a whole lot. You can just kind of even it out. All right, so now can't forget, this is now my last connection, so I will go ahead, grab positive and negative wire that runs all around the truck. I will go ahead and splice it. So that's where I'll start twisting wires together. Now I'll take these 2 rock lights, twist those together. These rock light wires are so thin. Typically you can fit quite a few inside these connectors, even with the positive and the negative in there. Shove my rock light wires in there, then I'll shove the big wire in after. Sometimes it's a little easier to tape off. Sometimes the ends I want to separate. Got it all shoved in there now. Alright, I'm going to heat shrink it. Got a bunch of wires in there. Sometimes it's hard to heat up the wires enough to get that solder to melt, so you got to hold it for a little bit longer. Typically those wires get hot enough all together to melt the solder alone, so you don't really have to worry about it too much. Just try as best you can. Alright, so let that connection cool down before I do anything else. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing with the ground. I don't feel like I need to show you that. I think it's going to be pretty self-explanatory. So I got zoomed here just like that. You got 2 really good connections. You can see the soldering actually spreading out between the wires. Now it's time to go ahead and test them. Got the rock light switch turned on. As you can see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All on this side's pretty much good to go. I just gotta get that rear defender tapped in and then go around the backside, and then boom, it'll be going around. But I've got to get more wire than that. I honestly don't know why I put this on here, but I'll try to get as far back as I can. We'll see. And then I'll just solder into the end of this and it'll be all right. I'll probably have to add a little bit, knowing my luck, but we'll see how far it gets me back there. Here we go. I got the wire ran up. I mean, I got it zip tied up, but I've got all the connections. Here's the 3 rock light connections that go on this side. Got taped
See how far I taped up, about 1.5 inches. Here's the connection, got it taped up about 2 inches over here. Here's the other two rock wires going out. And again, I'll go ahead and zip tie it up and show you guys how clean it is. Like that, this side's done. I am gonna be hiding it a little bit better, but I've got it where I can see it just in case I loom it. Like I said, eventually I'll loom it and I'll actually shove it up there even more. But you can't see any of the small rock wires, obviously, except for right there. I am gonna be hiding this connection a little bit more. I gotta tuck that back there. Try to get the wires tucked back behind this as much as possible, but I do have more zip ties to add. Normally I try to space them out about 1 foot apart, and then I'll do one every 6 inches because I do have to install wheel lights as well. So I'll have to add more zip ties. So I try not to put too many on right now. And again, I'm gonna get all these rotated on top. Like I said, I have more wiring to do to install, and I gotta cut a couple old zip ties. But for right now, this is pretty good. I cannot put this any further because now I have to run it over the top of the fuel tank, and it'll end up going out about right there. And that's where I said I'll come up and I'll go ahead and I'll go to this connection for this inner fender right here. But I can't do anything until tomorrow to get more wire because this won't even reach to the back of the fuel tank. All right, y'all, it is like T-minus 8 hours before I have to leave for Sema. Well, yeah, I don't even think it's 8 hours. I still have to put my Gen Y on, which I just snagged for my powder coater. I still have to finish up the rock lights. The wiring just came in as soon as I left to go get the stuff for my powder coater, so everything's just been a shit show all day. I haven't filmed hardly anything of the install. I wanted to film the install on the wheel lights, but I didn't have the time to film. I needed to get it done. They are done now. And also, the wheel light install is completely different from any way that you guys would ever install them, unless you, I guess, took the wheel lights apart. Like, I had them give me the wheel lights in pieces. Since that's the good thing about working with a company that builds their own wheel lights in the United States, is because they can give you a set that's not put together, and then you can, what I did, I actually installed them without taking the wheels and tires off. So, since I built them basically behind the brake rotor, put them on, put some 3M tape on so it didn't obviously scratch the powder and stuff like that, and that was able to also help hold it up so I could drill the holes, and I just zip tied them on just because that, like, if you watch my other video, my wheel light install video, that is the best #1 way to install. I would have normally done nuts and bolts on this, but I do not have the time to take all the brakes apart, do all this stuff, risk chipping powder or anything like that. So I didn't even want to take the wheels and tires off because I don't want to do nothing. So that's why, again, I installed them behind the brake calipers. I installed them and built them behind the brake rotors. So got the Gen Y in the back seat. I'm headed home. I'm gonna start getting all this stuff on. I'm probably gonna do the Gen Y first, just because it is kind of a lot. But it shouldn't take too long. And like I said, the wiring should take maybe another hour. So I'm hoping I can be done by 7:30 to 8. And then we leave. The guys up in Maryville leaving around 2:30. And if our trip's about the same, we'll intersect at about 5:30. And then from there on out, then we'll just have a convoy of trucks going out. Anyways, that'll be on another video. This is still the Sema Pro video. So I'm gonna get home, I'm gonna get this stuff done, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. All right, so I got out here to Vegas. I drove 21 hours on 1 hour of sleep. So that video is something I said like 5:30. I didn't get home till, I didn't get done till like 10:30, 11. I still had to shower. I tried to sleep, couldn't sleep. I had about an hour of sleep. Anyways, we made it out here. I didn't film anything that I wanted to, but like I said, it was so stressful. I was so stressed out. I hope you guys understand, and I do apologize for that. But I will go over everything in a later video, but please enjoy the Sema videos. They're gonna be a lot better than this one, trust me. This one, again, I wish I could have showed so much more, but I'm headed to bed, so see ya.